It was a Saturday afternoon. By the time I got on the stage, most of the audience had disappeared and had gone back to the hotel. And I thought, well, this is a hell of a way to make a debut.
My colleagues, the other jazz critics, said, who is this girl? She must be a local, somebody doing somebody a favor. So the kind of gossip that goes on.
It's a pleasure to present to you now a little gal who was local, but anyway, she's a good singer. Carol Sloan.
I said to the piano player, I want to sing Little Girl Blue. He said, okay, fine, I know that. I said, I want to do the verse. He said, oh, God, I don't know the verse. I said, well, that's okay. Just play an arpeggio in B flat, and I will sing the verse a cappella. People didn't do that. You didn't sing a verse a cappella and be expected to be in tune when they got to the chorus.
But she came out, she opened her mouth, and the moment she did that, we were all transfixed.
When I was very young, the world was younger than I.
How about that?
As merry as a carousel.
Oh.
The circus tent was strung with every star in the sky. Above the ring I love so well. Now the young world has grown old, and gone are the tinsel and gold. So sit there and count your fingers. What can you do? Old girl, you're through. Just sit there and count your little fingers. Unlucky little girl blue. Oh, sit there and count the raindrops falling on you. It's time you knew. All you can count on are the raindrops falling on you. No use, old girl. You might as well surrender. Your hopes are getting slender. Why won't somebody send a tender blue boy to cheer up little girl blue?
Carol Sloan is right in there with everybody you need to hear. You know, all the greats.
Carol's the tops as far as phrasing of anyone, even all the people that you hear from Ella to Sarah.
Carol just has that buoyancy in her swing, and it's never right in your face.
There's a love in what she does. You can hear that.
Chicago's my hometown. My ship has sails.
It's universal. No matter who's listening, they get it, and they understand the delivery is so exceptional that it touches anyone.
You know, it isn't just having a voice, because it's really what you do as an interpreter of that material. What is now called the Great American Songbook.
She knows what she's singing about, and she wants to communicate it to you. I was a little kid in Los Angeles, did not know her, but I felt her singing to me.
She just has a way of making every song sound like hers. You have to stop and think, wow, did she write that?
And the sun sits so high in a sapphire sky.
And most importantly, she gives all of herself, all of her experience that she has lived into the lyrics.
I can wait the years
She's telling you a story.
until it appears.
Carol is one of the greats, and there's really only one of her.
When my ship comes in.
Some great people of jazz talking about Carol Sloan. You're on WRTI HD2. I'm Bob Craig, as I mentioned. And this hour, we're going to really get into the heart and soul of Carol's career. And thankfully, I have the producer of the new documentary that's out that's simply called Sloan, a Jazz Singer. And that would be Stephen Barefoot. Stephen, what more can you say? Sloan, a jazz singer, that says it all, right?
Well, that's the way she always classified herself. She said, I'm just a jazz singer, and that's really where that title came from.
Stephen, I want to talk a bit about the documentary that you did with Michael Leppard. He was the person who directed and also helped in producing. But you worked on this. I want to find out the origins of how this all came about, going back how many years?
Yeah, I first met Carol in the early to mid-1970s. I was a bartender at a jazz club in Raleigh, North Carolina, called The Frog and Nightgowns. And my very first night on the job, someone came in and sat down at the bar and introduced himself. He said, well, you must be new here. I haven't seen you here before. And he said, have you met Carol Sloan yet? It was like the first question I got on my first night there. And later on that same night, Carol walked into the club and took a seat at the bar and then looked at me and basically said the same thing. Oh, you're new here. I haven't seen you before. Hi, I'm Carol Sloan. The friendship and relationship just continued for 50 years. I had a jazz club in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in the early 80s and asked Carol to come down and be my partner with that as well. So we spent a lot of time together over the years. Certainly, a Frog engagement was the first time I ever heard her sing. Was not a jazz fan or didn't really know anything about jazz at that time. I enjoyed music. My grandmother was a music teacher, a piano teacher, and I was drawn to music. And I think her honesty at that microphone on stage probably was something that I had never seen before as a young guy. And that impression and that trait of hers carried through until the very end. There was no one who was more honest.
Yeah, I hear that word come up quite a bit when people talk about Carol Sloane, about the honesty in her singing and how she's just really able to not only get into the heart and soul of the song, she tells the story and it becomes so engaging.
Exactly. It's the story that matters. She wasn't standing there to really try to impress. I think it was rare that she ever sang a number that really didn't mean something personally to her. There were certainly times on albums where she was required to sing a certain song that the label wanted on that recording. But when Carol was putting together her own sets for clubs and concerts, almost everything she sang related to her life.
She also surrounded herself with really great musicians, especially pianists. People like Roland Hanna, Kenny Barron, Norman Simmons, Tommy Flanagan, Bill Charlap, and Jimmy Rolls. I want to play Carol singing with Jimmy Rolls. He has always been one of my favorite pianists, and hearing him on several recordings with Carol Sloane just kind of, it sealed the deal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they were very much in sync musically.
Yeah, and here's a sample of that, Jimmy and Carol together in Cheek to Cheek.
Heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak, and I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Oh, heaven, I'm in heaven, and the cares that hung around me through the week seem to vanish like a gambler's lucky streak when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. I'd love to climb a mountain and to reach the highest peak, but I don't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. I'd love to go out fishing in a river or a creek, but I don't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. I'll dance with me, I want my arms about you, the charms about you will carry me through to heaven. I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak, and I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. But I don't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Well, I'd love to go out fishing in a river or a creek, but I don't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Yeah, dance with me, I want my arms about you, the charms about you will carry me through to heaven. I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak, and then I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing, we're out together dancing, out together dancing cheek to cheek.
Cheek to Cheek, it's Carol Sloane, it's Jimmy Rolls at the piano, Bob Craig here with you, Stephen Barefoot is on the line. He is the person, as I mentioned, that produced the documentary Sloan, a Jazz Singer. Tell us about the origins of that documentary, how it came about, and everything that you would like us to know about it.
Well, Carol had such ups and downs in her career, and there was one point, and I don't remember the specific year, and she and I were talking on the phone, and she was in one of her really low periods at the time and having no work, and her husband, Buck, had passed away, and she said, "Do you think there's anybody at all who will remember me after I'm gone?" And that's really the seed of this film for everybody involved in it, is an effort to answer that question in the affirmative for her. She sort of joked, she laughed when I first said, "Well, what if we do some filming?" And she said, "What are you talking about? Why would you do some filming? Who would care? Who would watch?" But that's how the film began, was with that question: do you think anyone will ever remember me after I'm gone?
About what period of time was this?
That would have been 2015, 16. We started filming in 2018. Carol had been invited back to North Carolina to sing Bye Bye Blackbird at a memorial service for one of the attorneys that she had worked for as a legal secretary in Governor Terry Sanford's law firm in Raleigh. And she had been asked to come sing that song at Bob Spearman's memorial service. And she called me to tell me she was coming, and that she said, "They're paying my way and I can come visit for a couple of days if you want to." And I said, "Well, Carol, would you want to do a gig if I could find a space?" And she said, "Do you think anybody would come?" And I said, "Well, I do think anybody would come." And we've worked with a small jazz club in Raleigh called Sea Grace. It was just wonderful, and she sold out 2 nights there just instantly when we announced that she would be there.
You know, for those who may not know, and Stephen is alluding to her down period, Carol Sloan had a couple of albums on Columbia. There was a lot of high hopes for her. And then things began to fizzle as the British invasion and rock music came in. And Carol, like a lot of great singers and up-and-coming musicians and singers, just kind of got shoved aside. And Carol wound up going down to Raleigh, correct? Mm-hmm. And becoming a secretary, as Stephen had just mentioned, and would get gigs here and there, and then eventually started recording again, and that was back in the 70s and 80s, a couple of albums in Japan, some here in the States, and she never really caught on to the masses as such, because she's very specialized. But you know something, Stephen, I really believe that she will go down in music history in the same category as such greats as Johnny Hartman, for example, who wasn't that popular when he was alive, but posthumously, Carol passed away last year in January of 2023. But posthumously, people are going to start, glomming on to her legacy, and with certainly the aid of this documentary that you and Michael have put together, is going to be pretty well known. I mean, this documentary so far, as I understand it, has earned 12 Best Documentary honors. It all began where? Was it Santa Fe?
The world premiere was in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Exactly 30 days after Carol had passed away.
Wow. So she never really saw that as such in
Not on the screen. She
right.
saw it, sitting in her nursing home bed with my little laptop, is the way that she saw the film, and she saw several cuts, and I would always take the latest cut when I would go up to visit with her so she could see it, because I really wanted her to feel good about it and to give her sign off. And the last time when she watched the almost final cut, she was squeezing my hand and she was crying, and she said, "Thank you for telling the truth." So for me, that was her saying, it's okay.
The documentary is available on digital release. And how can people see this documentary?
Just go to kinema.com and type in Sloan, a jazz singer, and it will take them to the full film.
And well worth a view, no doubt. Let's get back to the music. You have chosen a recording by Carol Sloan that was written by the pianist Alan Broadbent and the songwriter David Frischberg, called Heart's Desire. I want to play it, and then you can talk about it, okay?
Okay.
Carol Sloan, Heart's Desire, on WRTI HD2.
If you should decide to seek your special dream, your heart's desire, nothing you can ever do will bring more joy to you. And if you're wise, you recognize your guiding theme, your heart's desire. Follow that, and you may make your dearest dream come true. But if you seek your heart's desire, your heart may break. That's the risk your dreams require. The chance you take, the choice you make. And soon enough, the seasons start to slip away. So seize the day, and if the fates are kind, then you will find your heart's desire. But if you seek your heart's desire, your heart may break. That's the risk your dreams require. The chance you take, the choice you make. And soon enough, the seasons start to slip away. So seize the day, dream your dream and make it grow. You're luckier than most, you know. Lucky to be living for your heart's
Carol Sloan and Heart's Desire. It's the title song from a 1992 album with her. Stephen and I were talking off air about how it's very difficult to pick and choose songs by Carol Sloan with the ballads because she does them all so well. And the story and the feel and the emotion that goes into it all. Stephen, let's, you had mentioned a few minutes ago talking about Carol Sloan back in the 60s and the emergence of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Well, Carol Sloan wound up being part of that scene in the mid-1960s when the British invasion happened. And for some reason, I believe she knew the promoter when the Stones and the Beatles came to the States. Is that right?
Right. Bob Bonus managed a number of the major big bands at the time, and he was asked to manage the first American tours by both the Beatles and the Stones. And he was also a very good friend of Carol's, and he was trying to help her career as well, and ended up inviting Carol to travel with the Beatles and the Stones on part of their tours. Even though Carol mentioned the fact, she said, those were the people, they were going to destroy my career.
Well, let's hear Carol's side of it.
I went to the Apollo Theater with the four of them.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah, Mick Jagger, Keith, all of them. They wanted to go to the Apollo to see B.B. King. So they kind of snuck in thinking they'll never recognize him. And I was sitting beside Mick and Keith. And, they got around the theater that they were there. We had to leave. So we're coming back downstairs, back out to the car. By this time, that entrance is surrounded by young women who are really ready to tear their clothes off, including mine. They would say, "Who are you? Who are you? What are you? What are you?" Throw me in the car. Throw me in the car. They jump in the car. We even got bodies hanging off the car. Somewhere on the planet, unless it's totally been destroyed, there's a picture of, I think, Keith or Mick holding my first album up. I mean, I wish I had that. I don't know what happened to that photograph, but it got to be worth millions of dollars, to me anyway.
She has such a great sense of humor about her. I had heard her on the radio. She would do some fill-in work in Boston back in, I think, in the 80s or so, and she was just so loose. She was so conversational and so funny, so funny. Yeah.
Oh, she had a great sense of humor. She did a public radio show here in North Carolina during the 80s as well called Sophisticated Lady that was on weekly in tandem with Gary Shivers' radio jazz program. And she was just spectacular on the radio. She put you at ease just by speaking.
I never saw her in person. For some reason, we kept missing, a concert here and there. And in all the years I've been here in Philadelphia, she had never appeared over at least the past, almost 50 years. I believe she told me that she was here one time in the 60s because briefly she subbed in with Lambert Hendricks and Ross when Annie Ross took a leave. But that was back in the, I guess, the mid-60s. So I really feel that I've missed out a lot. But at least I had a chance to do a program with her. And at least now, we have this great documentation of her life, the ups and downs of her career, and really into the heart and soul of what made this jazz singer great. Let's move ahead to her final performance, which was in 2019 in September, and the place is Birdland, the first time she played Birdland, according to her and your documentary. Tell us a bit of what you know about it.
Well, she really wanted to record a live album to be her. That was kind of her bucket list, was one last recording. And was fortunate enough to be booked into Birdland to do that, and did a 2-night run that was recorded in September of 2019. And that engagement actually becomes the finale of the documentary. We see her in prep and in rehearsal and in performance, always doubting herself. She never felt she did a good job. She felt the same way when she was a kid beginning to perform. She never felt she was quite what she should be, and she felt that way about the Birdland recording as well. She was very nervous about the performance. She did a great job. Audiences, they were just spellbound. It's a wonderful recording that was distributed by Club 44 Records. She was booked back into that was in September, and she was then booked to come back to Birdland the following March. But COVID had hit and everything had shut down, so she didn't get to come back and do that return engagement. And then she had her stroke in April and was in nursing care for the rest of her life.
Let's go to Birdland.
Maybe I won't live to love you as long as I want to. I can promise you, baby, I'm gonna want to as long as I live. And maybe I can't give you diamonds and things like I want to. Oh, baby, I'm gonna want you as long as I live. Now, I never cared, but now I'm scared that I won't live long enough. That's why I wear my rubbers when it rains and eat an apple every day and see the doctor anyway. What if I can't live to love you as long as I want to? Yet, baby, I'm gonna love you as long as I live. I'm gonna love you as long as I live. I'm gonna love you just as long as I live. I never cared, but now I'm scared I won't live long enough. That's why I wear my rubbers when it rains, eat an apple every day, see the doctor anyway. What if I can't live to love you as long as I want to? I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna love you, yes, I'm gonna love you. But I can promise you, baby, I'm gonna love you till I die. Maybe I can't give you diamonds and things like I want to, but I'm gonna love you just as long as I live. I'll even wear long underwear when balmy breezes blow. I gotta take good care of me because a sneeze or two might mean the flu, and that will never, never do. What if you can't let me love you just as long as I want to? I am gonna love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you just as long as I live.
So there, having a fun time at Birdland, Carol Sloan, Michael Renzi, and his group Michael at the piano. Bob Craig here with Stephen Barefoot, the producer of the Sloan documentary, Sloan, a Jazz Singer. We might also add again, award-winning. Stephen, you got to be mighty proud of this production because I can just imagine the amount of work that went into it, finding the source material, following her around, and and very, very touching moments in there, too. We opened the program with her version of Little Girl Blue, and I had to go back about 2 or 3 times and watch that sequence where she's listening to the performance originally of Little Girl Blue and then the actual recording of it, and the tear that falls from her eye while she's watching it. It's just so real, so Carol, if you will.
Yeah, it was a very emotional point of filming, for sure.
Well, congratulations again on that. And again, for anybody who's tuning in a little bit late here, wanting to know more about the documentary, you can check it out at kinema.com. That's KINEMA. And plan on spending about a nice, really well worth 1 hour and a half in viewing the documentary on truly one of the great singers we have of any kind of music. Agreed?
You're asking me? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're at the film's website, sloanfilm.com, too. There's a lot of background resource material and production photographs, and a lot of resources there for people who really want to delve a bit deeper.
Yeah, you and Michael really, I mean, you went to town on this thing.
Well, it's a whole team. It was a whole team of very devoted fans and friends. It's really been a grassroots effort in putting this film together, and people, contributing from $10 to $10,000 to help make this film happen. So the whole production team has been a very tight-knit group of people who were really doing it for love.
Yeah, it really shows it too, because just the way everything flows in the film and her life and the stories and the ups and downs, it's all there. And it all began in the early 60s. I don't know if people know that she is originally out of New England in the Providence area.
Providence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She got her start, and she started, singing here and there in little clubs. A couple of recordings that were made in 1953, 1954, 55, and linking up with the Larry Elgart Band in the 1950s. And there's some rare things that have been floating through various circuits, whether on albums or CDs, by people who really are deeply involved in jazz singers and, want to get into the heart of things. And one of the songs that she has pretty much proclaimed as being closely identified with her through the years is the lovely Ira Gershwin Kurt Weill number called My Ship. Do you have any thoughts about that? Have you ever seen her do it in person?
Oh, yes, I've seen her do that song in person several times, and I had the total honor of singing the duet.
You did?
Lady in the Dark, with her on stage at Raleigh Little Theater back in the 70s, again, when she was living in Raleigh. And she and I were both cast in that play, and the duet that comes near the end of the second act of My Ship. And it really didn't hit me for years that my goodness, I've been on stage and stood right beside Carol when we were singing that number. So it's a very special one. I think the message of the song, too, again, is her life story. She always felt that something lay ahead, that her ship would one day come in. It's a running theme because she never gave up hope. She never closed the doors at all.
My ship has sails that are made of silk. The decks are trimmed with gold, and of jam and spice there's a paradise in the hold. My ship's aglow with a million pearls, and rubies fill each bin. The sun sits high in a sapphire sky when my ship comes in. I can wait the years till it appears one fine day, one spring. But the pearls and such, they won't mean much if there's missing just one thing. I do not care if that day arrives. That dream need never be. If the ship I sing doesn't also bring my own true love to me, if the ship I sing doesn't also bring my own true love to
Carol Sloane's first version of My Ship. That's out of her first album, the first official album, I say, called Out of the Blue. Stephen, Peter Bogdanovich actually wound up writing the liner notes to that album. She had a very interesting following so early on. And the second album she did live at the Columbia Recording Studios with an invited audience of 50. And from what I understand on the album, about 200 people showed up, and they just had a raucous time, food and drinks and all. It's just captured on record beautifully. Carol Sloane, here on WRTI HD2. My name is Bob Craig, and my special guest, Stephen Barefoot. Mr. Barefoot has done some real heavy lifting here and putting together this terrific documentary, Sloane, a Jazz Singer, which, by the way, you can view if you go to kinema.com. That's Kinema. And if you are, especially, I'm thinking, Stephen, of maybe somebody is out there listening who wants to be a jazz singer or just a singer of good music and wants to get some insight into the ups and downs of what it's like. I mean, the hard road ahead a lot of times for a lot of people. Carol lived it. She sang the words that kind of implied what her career was about. And your wonderful job in putting this together so people could get a better understanding of this legend. I get to call her a legend because she's definitely going to wind up as being one for those, through the years, that want to become familiar with truly somebody who understood what this, not only business, but with this wonderful life, so to speak, of singing is like. Further thoughts, Mr. Barefoot?
One of the things about Carol's singing, we talked a bit about her honesty, but it's also that honesty coupled with a breath control like I've never really seen in anybody else, maybe Cleo Lane. That Carol could just sustain a note forever, but you never saw any evidence of breathing. She didn't have to gasp in and get a good breath in before she hit a note to hold it. It was always there, and it felt so incredibly effortless.
She obviously listened to the right people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it sure paid off. I want to play this song that probably very few people know. I know it was new to me, and you had mentioned that only a few recordings exist of I'll Always Leave the Door a little open.
A little open.
Yeah. Was her closing number at the Birdland performance. And you said it's quite autobiographical, too.
I think so. I think for anyone who knows Carol, that they realize that she's talking about her own life here. The song came about. Carol was at Sir Richard Rodney Bennett and Franklin Underwood's apartment, and there was a rehearsal going on with Lena Horne. Richard asked, "What's the boyfriend situation at the moment for you?" And Lena Horne answered, "Well, you know me, I'll always leave the door a little open." And Richard looked at Franklin and said, "Franklin, write that down. I think there's a song there."
Let's hear what Carol has to say and sing about it.
I really want to sing this to you because it means so much to me. This song has, it really speaks to me, and it may speak to some of you if you're as old as I am. And nobody in the house is as old as I am. Nobody in the house is old. The song was written by Johnny Mandel, the composer, the lyricist, Sir Richard Rodney Bennett, the late, much missed Sir Richard Rodney Bennett, and Franklin Underwood, who happens to be in the room this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Franklin, where is he? Where's Franklin? There you are. Hi, honey. Happy to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I've always wanted you to be in the room when I sing this song. Yeah, it's a killer song. It's wonderful. And Johnny Mandel wrote the most interesting verse. Melodically, it's a lovely challenge for singers. So those of you singers in the house, pick up on this one. Well, wait for a little while till you get to be as old as I am, because you can't sing it unless you're elderly. When I was young, the world was full of treasures, and every star was shining just for me. So many prizes, so many pleasures, all my tomorrows still to be. But as the saying goes, time can fly so fast. The bud becomes the rose, and roses never last. But I'll always leave the door a little open. I love to feel the breeze that passes by. And though my dreams are few, unlikely to come true, I'll always leave my heart a little room to fly. I'll always hold the day a little closer.
there'll always be another song I wanna sing. And so I'll never care if winter's in the air. I know I'll always see a sign of spring. And when I see that sign, well, I close the door again, be alone once more again, in my cozy shell. And when I taste the wine, will I drink my fill again, start to feel the thrill again, and surrender to the spell. Yes, I'll always leave the door a little open, 'cause that's the only way I know I can survive, believing there's a chance for more than just romance, believing that it's wonderful, it's magical, it's beautiful, believing it's good to be alive. Thank you all.
Carol Sloan live at Birdland back in 2019, her last live performance. And you were there for it, Stephen, because you were doing the documentary, and the audience was just, totally with her. There's no doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a great time. What a wonderful singer. What a wonderful chance to have you come on the program, talk about and give us better detail into the life and the singing and the documentary of Carol Sloan. Again, it's just simply called Sloan the Jazz Singer, and it's available online at kinema.com, KINEMA. Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
Well, just to thank you for spending this time with Carol.
Oh.
And having me tag along. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Bob.
It's been wonderful having you, and also having, as Carol would say, thanks for being in my corner. Almost let my New England accent come through there. But there again, she could identify with that coming from Providence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephen, thank you so much. Best of luck with the documentary.
Thank you, Bob, very much.
You're through, just sit there and count your little fingers. Unlucky little girl blue. Oh, sit there and count the raindrops falling on you. It's time you knew a tender blue boy to cheer up little